I'm David Gibbs, Executive Director of the Blue Devils.
And I'm Scott Chandler. I had the privilege this summer of working as program coordinator and choreographer for the Blue Devils.
And we're going to relive with you Saturday, August 9th, the DCI World Championships in Orlando, Florida.
Which we were very worried about the weather. We had a bad 3 nights of weather, and we were worried if the weather was going to hold out for us.
I think I spent the entire day looking up in the sky versus even at the course. So it was a very interesting day. I don't think we even did a run-through this day. And
just a music run-through that day. It made us a little nervous, but they were so focused that it didn't seem to faze them at all.
It was great. And that was indicative of the whole year with this corps. They were very, very dedicated. And they were on a mission, and they fulfilled it.
Yeah, as we began to explore the show's theme, the phenomenon of cool, we had discovered the idea for the show. Jay Murphy had actually found it in an advertisement in the New Yorker magazine, a discussion of the phenomenon of cool, the cool era of jazz, literature, art, and it really emphasized the individual. So we started with our percussion line, bringing out the individual's contribution, sort of setting the character, which was great for a percussion line to do, to set the character of a whole show.
You know, what's good. Also, what I enjoyed about this show was the fact that it allowed the audience to be involved. It allowed us to, play jazz, which we're known for, but also set standards for the drum corps activity and allow Scott and the staff to be extremely creative.
It was such a great moment for the drum line there, and setting the whole pace for everything, and then the horn line coming in with what was actually a deconstruction of a lot of Brubeck music that was reconstructed to become a full production, and the expansiveness of the form here and the way it was progressing and the process that developed into our first hit in Impact. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, the whole moment from the beginning all the way still, this is one big development idea. And incredibly difficult. These guys are going from one end of the field to the other and now having to carry these straight lines straight and the backwards, oblique, and then turn around and play one of the biggest impacts of the show.
And so fast right here. And this had a tendency to change speeds on us, especially with the color guard performers. Sometimes it could leave them in the dust because the horn line was really smoking there. So
I just told
they
Scott,
nailed it that night.
Just leave the rifles behind and just keep going.
This is a scary moment because of the camera coming over the head of the rifles right there, but Clint, one of the rifles, had the robot arm of the camera right there. He was okay with that every night.
I think you guys had a hard time deciding what to do with this moment because of the multi-tempo and the 5/4 meter, right?
And really wanted to create interest and complexity to what was happening emotionally through the music, and this seemed to be a good way to do it, and the tosses going through, creating texture.
And it added to the moment because it was such had the counter motion really added to what the music was displaying. And the pit, we had a change this year with pit instructors and with Mike Nevin. Yeah, he did an incredible job coming on board for his first year.
Interesting moment here. This went through quite a few changes. What they call the space chords in the past that have been used for part of the warm-up that were able to be put into the show as part of a production. And we went through a lot of incarnations of that moment and really gauged the final choice on how the audience reacted, and they seemed to enjoy that one.
Yeah, it was audience. That was one of their favorite moments, I think. And then that blowout, that as you watch the horn line back up, incredibly difficult. We had to adjust that a few times just to make it be achievable. And this is one of my favorite parts of the show, with the field coverage, the isolated entrance. Incredibly difficult, but really was a beautiful moment in our production.
Their ability, these performers, to work with this kind of field coverage and this kind of space between them and stay musically together and visually together. This was a difficult part to figure out with the choreography for the color guard here and matching these voices and the emotion that was coming through, but ended up being one of my favorite moments too.
And here's the part I never was.
You were never quite comfortable with
never
this.
Quite got to where I wanted it, but it's a great counter motion. It really was a nice effect.
It ended up working because of the continuousness of the thought that had begun at the beginning of the show, right, and was carrying us through all these moments, which are really an interpretation of these parts of Brubeck that are all going to come together right here in Blue Rondo.
And this is the moment that it gets paid off. And it took a while for the horn line to get comfortable and elevate this and lift it off the field with the color guard doing all their incredible work behind.
It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
They really sold it, though. And this is amazing to me what the percussion are about to do. I was always just floored by how they could work with such intricacy and such excellence right there.
And all of them participated. And what's neat about it, too, is the fact that not just what they're doing, but the energy level that creates the whole ending. You know, without their movement and flying around, you didn't have that high energy that ending just had and totally lifted off the field.
And they were great at it all season.
Yeah, they didn't.
Always good at that.
Yeah. A couple places, I think in San Antonio or Indianapolis, on some of these interesting new AstroTurfs, they had a few problems, but they got through it.
Yeah. This took us into the muted soloist, which was really sort of a tribute to the Miles Davis sound, really giving a hint at what that individual, as we spotlighted lone individuals throughout the show, sort of led the way in a new mood and emotion for the show. There's Cassidy and John, both new members to the Blue Devils. Did a great job. They were really the right people for this mood. There were so many performers that we could have used for these parts, and they seemed to fit that portion of the music just perfectly.
It's interesting, you know, the soloists that Scott and the staff brought out to really portray the show and the individuality of each of the performers. They were incredibly confident, and they sold the show. They never had any worries about them performing. They just a lot of show was riding on them. They did an incredible job.
Right.
And this production went through again. It evolved to try to find the emotional intent, and I think Scott and I talked a lot about this one throughout the year.
Absolutely, and competitively a lot. There were several discussions with people about how could you separate the boys to one side and the girls to one side with the core, when in all actuality they were tied together by the couple in the middle. That's what united the thought and kept bringing it all back together, until we're building into what we called the promenade right here, which is the core working on a diagonal and bringing focus. This was a tough build, and one we went through a couple of different metamorphosis or changes on.
Yeah, especially too because we changed the last week. We ended up building it facing backfield versus front field, which is a major build, going into these echelons, these straight echelons that anybody in the world can see are straight and covered
so
down.
hard.
And that one lift at the back before they come back forward again.
Yeah, just details and nuances that could come out and elevate the thought and the intent.
And then the emotional ending and the part, again, one of these things I never got what I wanted. I didn't want that left in the show, but again, it was more from the difficulty nature, but again, they pulled it off that night. They had an amazing performance that evening.
And it was their emotional intent behind that really made those moments work that you might be apprehensive about. This section got us into our little homage to the beatniks and sort of the poets that worked in the small coffee houses, and Dave Glide really worked hard on this and created a sort of scat language, which is very similar to the way that drums talk when they're rehearsing, and we built a production around it.
Yeah, it was, I think what Scott mentioned, you know, he wanted to do this, was it fit the show perfectly. It was always a little apprehensive would it work in our, for us, for the Blue Devils, but it really did, and allowed them to communicate to the audience one-on-one as well, the performers.
Yeah, the way they're looking at the audience right there is so indicative of what that whole production was about, their conversation with the audience.
And again, it just continues showing their commitment to the program. We had some great conversations before the year started, and Scott got to explain to the core the show, and they really bought into it. And one of the moments is right here.
The snare drums here, which actually they came up with the physicalness or the physicality, the body movement, going with that, which just amazed me. I have never seen drummers move with that sort of stylistic combination at the same time playing with such a level of excellence. And the bass drums here, able to produce effect, the 5 of them.
Right.
A lot of audiences really
all
just
by themselves
enjoyed that. He's introducing a new flag here. All the flags and the designs were taken from graphics of the 50s and into maybe a little bit of the early 60s, not so much the mod, but sticking to the late 50s as well as the costume.
And again, one of the moments of the show that we kept trying to get right. A lot of the show, as well as all our shows, a lot of it was timing and how one piece connected. Do we stop, get audience reaction, move on? Do we connect them? Do you have a big hit? And that one we decided to have a big hit and connect it into this production, the Take 5 production.
Which this is leading us into deconstructed moments again, which the deconstruction, reconstruction was such an important part of the process of building this program, now we're taking it off and working with more specifically on take 5.
And that whole moment was a real sensitive moment for us, for the Blue Devils, leading into this big
Real
impact.
subtle.
Real subtle. And it really was nice bringing each section and involving them. And then this is the build into what we hope is going to be the biggest moment of the show, the cool shout.
Right. Always working on how to bring cool into the program because it was so indicative of the era and the show. And once we figured out that this section had to sort of come across like a 3-ring circus, it really elevated it. And I think it really, really worked at the end. The guard got involved. We created more emotion. You can see there the communication that Cassidy and Roberto are having right there. It's
great. It was just a critical part of the show. It took us to the end. If that didn't get people on the edge of the seat, we would never have made it to the end of the show with them buying into it. So that was a critical moment that we struggled with. Finally got it, though.
Right. Leads us right into these graphics and the shifts of the graphics.
And then once again, we worked the end of the show quite a number of times. I think we changed it a week and a half before the finals.
That's correct.
And bringing the racks back again.
Little apprehensive about bringing the racks back because we had done it the year before, but it was appropriate for this moment and something that I now associate with this particular drum line. So it was well worth it because of the emotional and the intent of it and the intensity of the moment.
And then we just got everybody involved and the choir got a chance. We changed it so it was a total moment and got a chance to bring the individuality back into the show again towards the end.
Which brings us back to our lone musician, Eric, who began the show, is ending it also.
It was a great night, a long week, a lot of rain, a lot of adversity throughout the whole season, but these guys were very committed and did an incredible job. And Scott Chandler as well, being program coordinator for the first year. So we enjoyed the year and we enjoyed sharing our thoughts with you.
Absolutely.